Hello everyone, my name is Jane and welcome to Try a Chapter on Haul Edition. So basically, a few months ago, I did try a chapter video where I tried 4 books that I was debating if I want to unhaul or not. And from reading this first chapter, I decided if I actually want to unhaul those books or if I still want to keep them on my TBR. So today I'm going to do something similar. Basically, I have 4 books here that I'm debating if I want to unhaul or not, and I will be trying the first chapter of all of those books. Now, the thing with first chapter is that you can't really judge a book only by its first chapter. I read a few books in my life where I didn't really felt the book or didn't really enjoy it at the start, but throughout the book I started to enjoy it so much more. And I do have books that I really loved, but I didn't love the start of them. So it's not that I'm thinking that you can actually judge a book and to realize if you would love this book or not only by its first chapter. But I feel like specifically with books that I already debating if I want to unhaul or not, it will really help me to decide if I actually want to unhaul them, because those 4 books are already books that I have so much time on my TBR and already books that I'm not really interested in anymore, and especially books that I'm not sure if I would ever get to them. And although I still didn't read the books that I decided to keep from the previous video, I still feel like those books that I decided to keep, I'm more interested to read them today because I already read the first chapter and I was already intrigued enough to keep them. So I feel like trying the first chapter also will help me to unhaul the books that I don't think that I would like, and it will also help me to feel more intrigued to read the books that I will decide to keep on my TBR. I hope it's understandable enough. I will link the previous video in the video description if you want to check it out. But like I said, I have 4 books that I'm really debating if I want to actually keep them on my TBR or not. I'm not planning to do any unhaul soon, but I do think that this Try Chapter Unhaul edition is something that I do want to do every few months, just because I really want to get rid of the books that are not really interesting to me anymore because my TBR is so long. So let's go quickly over the books. And the first book that I'm debating if I want to actually unhaul or not is Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. And this is basically a book that is on my 2022 books to read in 2022. So it's on my yearly TBR. And I was thinking that I really want to read this book, especially because it's so much time on my TBR. But because it's so much time on my TBR and I never reached to it, I was thinking to myself, is this book actually interesting to me? And basically here we're following a teenager that meets a girl and they are becoming together and he's falling with love with her. But then at the day that they are meeting, this teenage girl is getting killed. And now the main character of the story is getting to some kind of a time loop and he's basically getting back to the same day over and over again. And he's trying to save his girlfriend and to basically save her from being dead. So the story itself sounds really intriguing to me, but I'm not sure if the story will actually play well, because I feel like those kind of stories with time loop can be really unrealistic and really not logical enough for me to enjoy them. So logically speaking, I'm not really sure if I would enjoy this book, and I really want to say if I will connect to the writing style, because if not, I will just unhaul it. Now the next book is One Last Stop by Cassie McQuiston. Cassie McQuiston is the author of Red, White and Royal Blue, which I actually didn't like. It's a book that I gave 2 stars and I'm not sure that I'm going to like this one too. And basically this is an adult romance story. It's a female-female romance, and from what I know, we are following a woman that is meeting other women on the train, but this other woman is from the past and she is time traveling. So it's supposed to be a romance but also with time traveling, and like it sounds interesting, the whole time traveling aspect, but from all the reviews I see, it seems like the time traveling concept wasn't really done well, and the main thing that people really enjoyed from was the romance itself. And because I already didn't enjoy Red, White and Royal Blue and didn't really connect to the writing style, I'm not really sure if I will actually enjoy this book or not. So I feel like trying the first chapter will really help me to decide if I actually want to read it or not, because currently I'm never reaching to it and I never put it on any TBR that I have. Now the 3rd book is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Byron. Now this book actually sounds interesting and really intriguing to me, because we are following a teenage girl that is living in some sort of a dystopian world where every year all the 16 years old girls are going to a ball to basically find an husband. They have to go to this ball and they have to marry the man that will choose them, also if they don't want this man. And the main character of the story has a girlfriend. It's basically another female-female romance, and she really wants to live with her girlfriend and not to marry some old guy that she doesn't really want. And obviously from the title it's kind of a Cinderella retelling, but dystopia and just a bit different. So I feel feel like with this book, the idea is really interesting to me, and the reason that I didn't pick it until today, and that I'm not really sure if I will actually love it, is because I do feel like this book will be those kind of YAs that feel too young. I think that I saw a few reviews that are saying that this book is pretty young and more simple, so I do think that although the idea is really, really good, I'm not sure that I will enjoy how young this book is. And finally, the last book is Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Bashadas. Now, if you saw my video of reacting to all of my 2021 TBRs, you know that this is the only book that was more than twice on a TBR. I put it on 4 TBRs in 2021, not including seasonal TBRs, and basically what I realized from this video is that maybe I'm not really interested in this book as I'm thinking that I am, because it's been on so many TBRs and until today I didn't read it. And basically this is supposed to be, I think, the Sleeping Beauty retelling. It's a YA fantasy standalone, it's another sapphic book, and basically here the main character is living in a castle. I'm not sure if she's the princess or not, but she has some kind of curse that makes her stay hidden all of her life until the day of the wedding of her twin brother is coming, and she's deciding to step out of the shadows, but then things are happening. So honestly, the idea itself does sound interesting to me. It's a retelling which I usually enjoy from, but just the whole book a little bit reminds me Elsa from Frozen, because also Elsa kind of was hidden from the whole world because she has a magic that she can control. So it sounds to me like something similar. So yes, those are the 4 books. If you would ask me which books I think that I'm going to unhaul and which not, I do think that those 2 books are going to be the books that I'm going to unhaul. This is the book that I'm most sure of that I'm going to unhaul, because this is the book that I'm least interested in out of all of those books. And this one I'm just really afraid that I won't connect to the writing style and that the execution of the idea itself won't be really good. And I do think that maybe I won't unhaul those 2 books. This is a dystopia, so it's already more interesting to me more than the others, because I really love dystopia and this idea actually sounds good, but this is just my expectations. It's probably going to be different, and I think that it will be really fun to see in the end what I will actually keep or not. And yes, I think that I will start with Opposite of Always. I'm not sure why I just grabbed it. I think that I just want to start with contemporary. So this is the first book, and let's start with this one. Okay, so I actually read the first 2 chapters because they were really short, so it felt to me like one chapter reading both of them. And we started not in the beginning, we actually started already in the 4th time that the main character is in this time loop, another time that he tries to save his girlfriend. And after those chapters that I read, we're going to the beginning of how they met and like everything from the start. So I guess it was kind of a prologue or something like this. And I'm actually really not sure what to think. I'm not sure if I'm really vibing with the writing style, but I also don't really hate it. Like I don't have any things for it, and I was really surprised that we just started from the middle, like from him trying to save her already for the 4th time and not really from the beginning. So it was intriguing that we started from this part of the story. I'm still not sure what I'm going to think about it, and I'm still not sure how the time traveling and like the time loop that he's stuck in is going to play in the book. And I really think that I can decide right now if I want to unhaul it or not. So this is a maybe for now, and I will check the other books and we'll see if I actually want to read them or not. Like honestly, I'm just really confused of what I'm thinking about this book. But yes, I think that I will read the first chapter of Cinderella is Dead, and I will decide on Opposite of Always in the end of the video. So let's see what I will think about Cinderella is Dead. So I just finished reading the first chapter of Cinderella is Dead, and it was actually really interesting. Like I was really intrigued. I read only 1 chapter, although it was short, because this chapter already made me want to keep this book on my TBR. I'm still pretty afraid that this book is going to feel young, but so far I did enjoy the writing and it didn't feel too young to me. It can change, but so far I actually did enjoy the first chapter of this book, and it was intriguing enough for me to want to keep reading it. So I will definitely keep this book on my TBR, and I might even read it soon or not, because I always say it and in the end I don't read those books. But now I'm in the mood to actually read it, so I even might read it soon. So yes, we have 1 book that I'm sure what I'm going to do with it, and I'm going to keep it on my TBR. And yes, now I'm going to try reading the first chapter of One Last Stop, and I will leave the fantasy to the end. I think that I'm just going to see if I actually connect to the writing or not. So yes, I'm pretty nervous, but let's see what I will think about it. So I finished reading the fourth chapter of One Last Stop, and I think just isn't for me. Like, the chapter was pretty long. I remember that also in Red, White and Royal Blue, the chapters were pretty long. And while I read the chapter, the only thing that I was thinking is that I really want this chapter to be over. So obviously, if I really wanted this chapter to be over, I won't read the whole book, because only the first chapter felt to me too much. It's not that the writing is bad, like the book isn't bad. Also, the other books, if I will decide to unhaul them, it doesn't mean that any of the books are bad. They are just isn't for me. And the writing here is okay, but the book feels so slow to me. Also, Red, White and Royal Blue felt really slow to me. I do usually prefer fast-paced books, but specifically romance. I do enjoy slow-burn romances, and I'm okay with slower books if they are interesting enough for me. But here I really felt like it was just too slow for me, too slow for my liking. I didn't really like what is going on. And also, we started with the main character searching for a new apartment, and she found an apartment with a few roommates that she's going to live in. And I just feel like the whole first chapter didn't really had any plot or any point. Like, again, I don't think the book is bad, but also in Red, White and Royal Blue, while I read it, I just felt like there isn't any point. I just kept asking myself, what is the point? What is going to happen? Like, where are we going to? I didn't feel like we are actually progressing in the plot itself, because the plot was really messy for my personal liking, and like compared to the books that I read and enjoy from. So I feel like also the first chapter here really made me ask, what is the point here? What is the point of this book? What is the idea? I understand that it's a romance book, but I just don't feel like we're really moving forward. And again, it's just my first thoughts from the first chapter. So obviously, if I would actually read the book, my opinion can really change, but I don't think that I want to read it. I decided to unhaul it, especially after this first chapter. I also predicted that this is going to be the book that will be least interesting to me. So I am going to unhaul it, especially because I didn't really enjoy the first chapter, and I really wanted the first chapter to be finally over. And now that the chapter is over, I can say that I won't ever pick this book up. So I'm just going to unhaul it. So currently we have one book that I'm going to keep, one unhaul, and one book that I'm not sure about. So now I'm going to read Serpent, Thorn, the first chapter. And like I said, I do think that I will keep it, but I'm not sure. Let's see how I'm vibing with writing. Okay, so I finished the first chapter of Serpent, Thorn. Technically, I read 2 chapters. The first one was the prologue, and it was only 3 pages. So I really wanted to read the actual first chapter because it wasn't enough for me to decide. And the thing is that the prologue itself was so interesting. Like, I started to read it and I was so in the story, so invested, was really intrigued. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to keep it. Like, it sounds so good. And then I started with the first chapter, and the first chapter felt different. Like, I still like the idea itself. Again, it really reminds me Elsa from Frozen, because it's a girl with magic that she can control, but like the main character, the story is that she was cursed and everyone that she will touch will die. So like, she can't actually touch people, she with gloves all the time. And again, the idea itself is so interesting, but throughout the first chapter, I just felt like I'm losing my interest more and more, and that just something in the execution and in how everything is written feels a bit too slow to me and too boring for me. And again, it doesn't mean that the book is bad, like One Last Stop. I just don't think it's personally for me. And I feel like in general, I'm much more picky about my fantasies recently. So after reading the first chapter, I know that the chances that I will pick this book up are really, really low. So I think that I'm just going to unhaul it to make more room in my TBR and like to be more excited about the books that I'm actually excited to read for my TBR. So I'm going to unhaul it in the end. Although the prologue was interesting, but the first chapter wasn't really. And I know that you're still waiting for the updates of Opposite of Always. I thought about it while I was reading the other chapters, and I do think that I'm going to unhaul it too. Before it started like pretty interesting and started right in the middle of the plot, which was really intriguing to me. I still don't think that I would really love the theme of the story of the time traveling and just the theme of going back and trying to save his girlfriend. Just something here didn't really speak to me, and I feel that if I will keep this book on my TBR, I will still not pick it up. So in the end, it means that I'm going to unhaul 3 books in this video, which is pretty surprising to me. Like last video, I saved 2 books and I unhauled 2 books, so now the number isn't even, and I'm going to keep on only one book, and the three of them I'm going to unhaul. So it leaves us only with Cinderella is Dead, which I'm actually going to keep, and not only keep, I'm really intrigued to read it now. I'm still not expecting a lot. I'm going to go with it with not high expectations. I know that not a lot of people loved it, and that a lot of people say that it feels younger, which for me usually makes me not really enjoy a book. But for all of the stuff and for the bad reviews, this is the only book out of all those books that I actually wanted to keep reading, and that I actually didn't want the chapter to end. So I'm really intrigued to keep reading it. I'm not sure when I will pick it, like it might not happen ever, but now that I read the first chapter and I'm much more intrigued, I do think the chances of me picking it up also soon are much higher. And yes, maybe I will even read it this month, like weekend, never know, because I'm a mood reader and I decide what to read only when I start to read something. But yes, I'm still really intrigued and especially really surprised. Like I predicted that this is going to be one of the books that I will keep, but I didn't thought that I would like it this much. Like now I actually want to read it soon, and I didn't thought that this will happen. So again, I'm happy that I did this video because it made me want to read this book and made me want to unhaul the others. And yes, 3 books I'm unhauling, 1 I'm keeping on my TBR. It's so interesting to see the numbers and how my predictions are compared to the actual reality, which is funny. Honestly, I'm just really happy that I'm going to lower my TBR now and to feel less pressured, because I have a huge TBR and I feel like it sometimes gets too big for me. So I'm just really happy that I'm doing unhauls from time to time. Again, I'm currently not planning to do an unhaul soon, but I know that I will do someday an unhaul. So maybe I will do another try chapter unhaul edition in the future. So please let me know if you like those kind of videos and if you enjoy them and you want to see me doing them again in the future or not, because for me it was really fun and it really opened me to understand what I'm feeling about those books. And yes, I really hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!